Are you afraid that AI is going to take your job? Here's what I'm covering in this video. What is Gen AI? Having an AI mindset. Non-technical uses for a non-developer in a corporation. And finally, one action that you can take immediately to keep moving forward in a world with AI. All right, let's get into it. I'm Erin, and I talk about all things business, career growth, and personal development so that you can show up your best in the corporate world every single day and go after the dreams that you want. I am a coffeeholic, so we're going to get right in with a cup of coffee and we're going to dig into it. So, first things first, what is Gen AI? Gen AI, or Generative Artificial Intelligence, is a type of AI that generates images, text, videos, and other media in response to input prompts. Right. Now, before we get into it, I want to just take a minute and say thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. I've done quite a bit of research on generative AI. I use it in my everyday life, and I've been thinking deeply about what it means for society at large. I'm not going to unpack that here, but I've been thinking about what it means for me, how I am using it, what in my past what things do I use that I started using in the past that might feel similar to this, although obviously we haven't used Gen AI before. And here's what I got to thinking. So having an AI mindset starts here. Think about it with this phrase. Leaders who use Gen AI will replace leaders who don't. Developers who use Gen AI will replace developers who don't. Managers who use Gen AI will replace managers who don't. Whatever your job title is or whatever role you do right now, swap that in and think about that role and whether you're going to use it or whether you're not. This is a catchphrase that's going around and I think for the last year and a half, there have been a lot of articles and conversations around fearing AI and what it means, and a lot of doom and gloom. And then there's this phrase going around, and I really like this phrase because ages ago, Google came out with Google Search, and at first we weren't necessarily using it, but if we look back at history, that was a tool just like Gen AI is a tool today. And the reality is, now that Pandora's box of Gen AI has opened, that box isn't going to close. We as an entire collective world are not going to stuff Gen AI away in our back pocket and never use it again. It's here to stay. And so it's my view that while there are lots of implications to that, and we need to be thoughtful about security, we need to be thoughtful about the uses of it, the dark side of it. I'm not going to get into that in this video. What I am going to get into is how to think about it as a tool and how to use it in a way that is helpful and meaningful in elevating the quality of your work. So not just being able to work faster, but the actual quality of your work could be uplifted. And I'm going to talk about it in context of it being a tool. So instead of having a scarcity mindset and saying, well, it's only for a certain sort of person, like a developer, or it's only for this, or it's only for that, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's for anybody who sees it as a tool to do better, higher quality work. And here's what I mean by that. If you think about Google search, I use it all the time. I don't even think about it as a tool. If I am trying to save time on something and I go and I Google search for an answer and I see lots of different search results and I very quickly can kind of arrive at the answer that I want, I've used Google search as a tool. So I'm thinking about Gen AI from that construct. Make sense? And here's where we come to our third section, non-technical uses for Gen AI as a tool. So whether we're talking about Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, or any other Gen AI tools out there, you want to ask yourself this: how can I use this tool to do my work more effectively? How can I use this tool to do higher level work? And I think if there's only one thing you take away from this video, it's higher level work. This is the key. You want to think about what is the work that you can do that's higher level that you don't have time to get to right now because you are stuck in lower level work, in more mundane work, in work that can be automated, but you don't currently have a way of automating it. So next up, we're going to go over 3 different uses that you can use and take away right now and go to work tomorrow and put into play. Look at every single thing on your to-do list and then circle all the things that you don't like doing, and then do a real brainstorm session on creative ways that you could get Gen AI to do that. So this is something which I'm going to say do this, but I'm not going to give concrete examples because I don't want you to latch onto those examples and say, okay, well, I can't do that, or I can't do that, or I can't do that. This is about you being curious and creative and saying, these are the things these are the mundane jobs. Now, maybe they're mundane to everybody, but if they're mundane to you, what is it that you might get creative and think about? And if you've circled 3 or 4 things and you're like, you know what, I would love if I didn't have to do these anymore, but I cannot think of a way that Gen AI could help me not do these things. I am pretty sure that you know other people in the workplace or friends or family members, and you could take that short list and you could crowdsource some creativity around how to maybe leverage Gen AI as a tool to free up your time and get those things done, but say not directly by you, not manually, not painstakingly, and let's be honest, who likes to do stuff that they don't like to do? And those are the things that we'll tend to put off and procrastinate, or we will procrastinate on the things that are big and important because we're stuck in the time suck of all the mundane things. So what is it that you can do? And if you think of something that you think would be useful to somebody else, what's your role? What's that thing you don't like doing? And what's a creative way that you're going to use Gen AI, or that you have tried using Gen AI to automate or get rid of doing that from you manually? Leave that in the comments and let's help other people out. All right, way number 2. You're going to use it to glean insights from data. And I don't mean as a developer or somebody that works with, like, in a data department. I'm talking about anybody and everybody in the business world that works with data in any way, shape, or form. Here's an example. A couple of years ago, my team and I did a survey, and we got close to 400 responses, and each response wasn't like a single response. Each response was answering a series of questions, and a lot of those were actually open-ended questions. So we spent hours upon hours poring over that data and trying to see, like, what worked, what didn't work, what were some of the themes, what were some of the big challenges, and this was around ways of working in a huge global organization. And so a lot of the comments were really sensitive in nature, and some of the comments resonated more with us as individuals than other comments did. And so as black and white as we tried to be, had we had generative AI at the time, we could have dumped everything in and we could have gotten some really unbiased and very quick results, and it would have saved us. We probably each spent somewhere between 4 and 8 hours on it. And so I'm talking about saving 30 hours of work just like that. You have the results really quickly. They're objective, and you're going from data to information in a very high quality way. So that is use number 2. And use number 3, which is our final use that we'll talk about today, is to experiment. And this means really getting in there and tinkering with it and seeing what it'll do and trying things out. And actually, I have office hours on Tuesdays, free to anyone in the world. It's not a sales pitch. But if you want to chat with me for 15 minutes about whatever is on your mind, you can go to my website, erinntran.com. I meet with up to 6 people every single Tuesday, and in some of the recent calls that I've had, I have heard about some creative outside of work ways that people are using it. And the other day I was talking to somebody and they said something that I thought was really cool, and in case it's helpful to use it in a way of thinking about creativity and experimenting and tinkering with it, here's what they told me. They said, I use it for recipes. So before, I would go on Google search and I would search for recipes, and I would get all these recipes and I would try to pick through it, but actually maybe sometimes I was having a problem. I was making brownies and my brownies were a little bit too much this or not enough that. And so I simply have been typing into, I think they were using ChatGPT, but again, which Gen AI does not matter so much. It's about finding the one that works for you and figuring out how to ask it the right questions. So in the case of the brownies, they were a little bit too dry, let's say. So the question might be, instead of looking at a lot of recipes and trying each recipe to see which brownie recipe made them the right amount of moistness for my own atmosphere and elevation and oven and conditions and blah, 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 you could simply put into the generative AI, hey, my brownies are too dry. What are some tips for making them moister, making them softer, making them fluffier, or whatever it is that you're going for. So if you think about that as a cooking example outside of the workplace, how might you tinker with in your role, specific to your role, how might you tinker with generative AI as a tool to increase and elevate the quality of your work? And I'll give you one last work example, because when it first came out, I wanted to see what it would do. And at the company that I was at the time, we had a rather complicated relationship with partners around direct sales competing with channel sales, and I asked it to write me a legal contract, just a draft of it, of how you might word something to mitigate the tension, because the two sides were just, everybody was just kind of trying to explain to the other and they weren't coming together. And so then I took that and it helped me think about how I might approach bringing those two groups together. I also took it to the legal team, and I realized very quickly that a junior person in the legal department in a corporation could have drafted that, but Gen AI did it in about 3 minutes. And then it still could have gone to, or would have needed to have gone to, a more senior person to really review, make sure that it was actually not review, like, is it legit, but like actually take that as almost a first draft, certainly not a final draft. You shouldn't just take the work of it and move it along, but to think about it as a tool. So actually, I guess that was 2 examples, but so think about the recipes, think about that kind of legal draft as a starting point for how might I approach, or how might I think about solving. So if you don't have a great way to do it straight away on something, then you might want to experiment or tinker around with it. All right, so on to our final action. I challenge you to take, of those 3 different ways, so using it to synthesize data and get information, using it to tinker around and experiment, and look at everything on your to-do list and get creative about what you can have Gen AI do for you to free you up for higher level activities. So out of those 3 things, which one are you going to try? That's your action. Tomorrow when you go into work, try one and let me know how it goes. Thanks so much. If you like this video and you're still here, if you could put chit chat, no. Let's put coffee in the comments so I know who my fans are. Thank you so much. Bye.